live in Cairo. These are the pictures that we're seeing with what seems to be tens of thousands of people waving the Egyptian flag, assuming that Friday prayers are just about over there. It's usually between 12 and 2 local time there, around midday in Cairo. Let's join our correspondent Shireen Tadros, who's been monitoring the events there. Shireen, it seems as if those that have taken to the square are saying Mubarak is gone, granted, but our liberation and our revolution has definitely not ended yet.
Yeah, I think so. There are several demands that the demonstrators there are making. They're calling it the Day of Solidarity, first of all. They're saying that this revolutionary baton, if you like, is being passed on now to other states, other countries in the region. And they're here really to show their solidarity with those protesters and demonstrators in Libya, for example, and elsewhere who are also demanding change. But Egyptian people, as you're saying, they also have their own demands right now. This is not over for them. They want specifically for the release of dozens, if not hundreds, of political prisoners, many of whom are still being kept under emergency law, which they also want to see lifted. And most importantly, they're against the new government, the caretaker government that has been sworn in on Wednesday. They are not happy with the composition of that government, especially with the new Interior Minister, Mahmoud Wagdi, who they say is really no better than his predecessor and has allowed for the police force to come out again in force on the streets and really get back to their old tricks of harassing and intimidating the population. So there is really a feeling here in Egypt that still the only way to express their views and the only ways for the authorities to enact change and for them to pressure them to enact that change is through these gatherings and public demonstrations.
Yes, it seems as if it's revolution phase 2. If you like. These are the pictures from Cairo. Let's also show you the pictures from Iraq. Shireen, stay where you are, but for the moment I want to go to Jane Araf, who we heard from just a few minutes ago as she was fleeing what seemed to be riot police. Jane, what's going on at the moment?
Look to my right, there's a standoff right now. A sea of riot police. The police will get the riot shields, the batons, and they're facing protesters, some of whom have been throwing stones, not just stones. Some of them are taking huge boulders, breaking them off and throwing them. There have been other protesters who are trying to stop the demonstrators from throwing rocks. And now we have one of these demonstrations that actually merged, where we're seeing our people walking from all over the city, gathering here in Liberation Square in the same spot, despite a ban on vehicles. They have walked for hours, some of them. And they're all here in a precarious situation, in a very precarious spot, in the middle of a bridge, facing the riot police.
Precarious situation indeed. Jane, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but were the riot police deployed to stop the protesters in general, or were they only deployed after people started throwing stones?
As we walked here, and along with all the other Iraqis on the square, we had to walk quite great distance to get here. Just below the bridge, we saw dozens of riot police standing by. They were deployed when the rock throwing started. They don't appear to be trying to stop the protest, but they are responding to the stone throwing. As those rocks started coming, the riot police rushed forward, and there was almost a stampede as people were almost crushed against the big concrete glass barriers. There are also what seem to be senior Iraqi officials and military officials watching as almost as if this were a parade. They're in a very tall building, some of them taking video of the protesters down here. A rumor has just swept the crowd that Basra has fallen. Now, we know there are protests in Basra where they've been demanding the resignation of the governor, but that has also excited the crowd here. All in all, a tense situation on a very precarious spot. There are at least a couple of thousand people on a very short section of this bridge. One side is concrete glass barriers, the other side is fully armed riot police.
And just looking at some context for the moment, Jane, before we let you go, the protesters claimed that they were protesting against corruption. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki had said that the protesters are playing into the hands of Al-Qaeda and the former Saddam loyalists or Baathists, and that this might actually have been organized by them. Does it seem as if his characterization of it in that way has spurred more protesters to actually come to Liberation Square in Baghdad because they might have felt insulted by that claim?
I think some of them did feel insulted. That's an excellent point. Some of them felt particularly compelled to come because Prime Minister Maliki was on television last night saying, don't go to this protest. This is Saddamists. These are Baathists. I'm probably being drowned out by a kind of a rare sight, but a sign of the times, an Iraqi helicopter that's circling. It used to be American helicopters, but now all we're seeing are Iraqi helicopters, Iraqi security forces. And that's part of the reason why there are so many people in this square. This is their country now, and they expect better from their politicians. These are young men for the most part, a lot of young men who don't have jobs, a lot of young men who can't get married. And they look around. If they could look into the green zone, which is beyond concrete glass barriers, but they know their politicians are in there. They know they're making a lot of money, and they know they're not getting any of the benefit of that oil wealth. And that's really what a lot of this is about. It's not even so much about politics. It's about the fact that these people here want a better life and feel they deserve a better life.
Jane, thanks for that for the moment. Protests as well in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. These pictures here, people walking with banners and placards. Let's find out what they're protesting about. I suspect it's against President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Let's ask Hashim Al-Barra. Hashim, what are they calling for?
Well, Imran, what we're seeing now in Yemen is two major rallies. One by government supporters, the biggest so far in the whole of Yemen, which you can see live from the Yemen local television, with people brandishing flags, carrying banners in support for President Ali Abdullah Saleh. As soon as they finished praying at the Saleh Mosque near the presidential palace, they started streaming into the major streets of the capital, and they are now marching towards Tahrir Square, which has been occupied by government loyalists about 2 weeks ago. At the same time, thousands of pro-democracy protesters are swarming the university campus, continuing their fight. They've been camping out for many days, and they're saying that they will continue their fight to see President Saleh go. Yesterday, Saleh met with his top advisors and senior government officials and said that he's willing to meet with the students and see what's the problem and to be able to fix it. But the people are saying it's too little too late, and that the fight will continue, and that the demand is for Ali Abdullah Saleh and the political elite of Yemen